attending. I'm not sure if he is, but it wasn't confirmed. Is there anybody by that name here? I don't think so, not that I can see through the blinded lights. But so I'll give a bit of context first, and then it's followed by his question. So nationally, we have lost 21,000 police officers since 2010, and community policing has all but disappeared. Prison probation services, parole boards and youth services are all woefully underfunded. How can we possibly be kept safe on the cheap? And so, Mr. Watts, if you would like to answer that one.
Unfortunately, trying to do things on the cheap normally leads to problems. The probation service is an absolute disaster at the moment, caused entirely by the Conservative government. Chris Grayling decided to privatise it. Everybody told him it wouldn't work. He didn't listen. It hasn't worked. Like his previous initiative to ban books in prison that was reversed, everything he touches turns to rubbish, and the probation service is a great example of that. The cuts in policing have been wholly inappropriate. The government in 2015 promised us they were going to raise police numbers. They didn't. Their manifesto offer from the Conservatives is to not even get us back to where we were. We're committed to funding 2 police officers for each council ward, 2 community police officers, so people who are based in that community, who know the local people. That on the feet, on the ground presence makes a massive difference. Again, it's a real change that we can see brought about. We've got a properly funded manifesto to do it, and 2 police officers per ward is a big step forward in tackling the problems.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. And Mr. Baggaley, if you'd like to answer that one.
So just 3 things. First of all, on policing, we've said we would reinvest in our police force to actually protect our communities and make sure that they feel safe again. The Conservatives, as I'm sure we're about to hear, have said that they will give us an extra 20,000 police. It's not an extra 20,000 police. It's replacing police that they have already cut. We're getting back to the same level that we said that we should have been at 10 years ago, but in the meantime, we spent a fortune dismissing police officers and letting them go. Just quickly to come back on health service, there's been real terms cuts in our health service. We are now there has been real terms cuts. Let me give you a really clear example. There was a man, I went to speak to a man in Southall. He was getting up at 5 a.m. He was 67 years old, and he was getting up at 5 a.m. the next day to drive an 87-year-old woman to an appointment in Derby, because that was the closest service you could get, and there was no provision for the transport to get there. That's the effect of the cuts, and they are real. And on the cuts to education, there have been cuts again to the schools across Newark, and we're only now seeing some small-scale investment. We need proper investment to not just replace the cuts that have been put in over the last 10 years, but to actually add to those services.
Thank you, Mr. Baggaley. Mr. Jenrick, would you like to reply to that?
Yeah, of course. Well, look, just on the point about service reductions, take the example of education, for example. What matters most of all is that standards are rising. There's 40% more children in good or outstanding schools in this constituency today than there was in 2010. Schools like the Magnus have been, is now rated a good school. It hasn't been since the 1990s. So standards are definitely on the up in this area. It's a huge tribute to the teachers, some fantastic heads that we have in this area, including at this school and elsewhere. But it's also about the work the government's done through the academisation programme and other initiatives. On policing, absolutely, I think there needs to be more visible policing in Newark. I'm working with the very good head of our police here, Heather Sutton, who's made a real difference since she came to the town. The work that she's doing is having an impact, and the extra officers that we can be expecting next year, I hope will start to feed through. I've spoken to the Chief Constable and to Heather, urging us to get our fair share of those police officers, so we have more visible policing in the town centre, particularly for the nighttime economy, better response times for crimes, things like vehicle, tool theft, for example, for which there's quite a lot of in the town centre, and also to tackle the new crimes that we're seeing, which didn't exist just 5 or 10 years ago, particularly county lines, which has become a significant driver of serious organised crime and more violent crime in the town. That's something that I'm going to make a priority in the years ahead, working with the police force to try and get a proper response to that.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Henderson, would you like to reply?
So short answer, you can't do it on the cheap. I used to be a community protection officer in Nottingham City Centre and the neighbourhoods. I was working at police, the Central Police Station there. The Green Party is proposing to put more beat officers on the street because you cannot compromise on a beat officer. A uniformed police officer creates far more trust in the community. There's engagement opportunities which are vital. You come across crime when you're just walking about. You come across evidence, and once you start taking police off the streets and have them in the police station, relying more and more on the public who are losing faith in the police to report everything in, you're going to find failings all the time. So we're going to increase the amount of beat officers on the street. We're going to increase the range of specialist officers. So we're going to have more liaison officers in communities, working in communities. And our big thing is prevention. We want to prevent crime, not just punish crime. We want to find out what the causes are and treat the causes so the crimes don't happen in the first place. We want to measure the success of the police force by the visible absence of crime, not by the visible punishment of crime. Our ultimate goal is we want to measure this by seeing the amount of prisoners in prisons halved. And that is how we'll know that we've been successful.
Thank you very much.